everyone and welcome back to my channel. This video is the penultimate video of this playlist, this kind of mini series I guess. It's going to be about fibroids and polyps. Starting with polyps, they are very common and they're basically abnormal fleshy growths and they tend to of tissue and they tend to be in like hollow organs such as your uterus, your colon, your nose. A lot of doctors do like these to be got rid of because even though most of them are benign, they can turn cancerous. So I had a polyp that was found on a scan. There's a video about that further back in the playlist. And then when I had the hysteroscopy, again, another video in this playlist, they removed it. So basically they just burnt it off. And the hysteroscopy, if you don't know, is a camera in the uterus. And yeah, they burnt it off. I actually knew but didn't know that I had this, so I could feel it on the outside. It was right in the entrance, but I was told it was a cyst when I had fertility treatment, and luckily for me, this cyst that was actually a polyp didn't turn cancerous in the 8 years between the two diagnoses. So yeah, that was good. If you do have uterine polyps, like myself, they may cause irregular bleeding of your period, which obviously I did have. I don't think it had anything to do with the polyp because the bleeding and everything carried on after I had the polyp, but obviously it can be a cause. And also pelvic discomfort. And one of the problems I had with sort of diagnosing everything, or they had with diagnosing everything, is so many things in that area have very similar symptoms. So they got rid of the polyp, but the polyp made zero difference to everything that was happening to me personally. But obviously these are things, polyps could affect you in these ways. They took a biopsy of my polyp as well when they removed it and everything was fine. So that's great, but obviously I'm glad that they checked it out, especially as it had been sitting there for at least 8 years. So you just never know. You can't be too careful with these things. Now fibroids, I also had at least one of these. Then when I went to go for the checkup, previous video, the playlist, she said fibroids, not fibroid, but I'm under the impression from the letters I've had from the hospital that I had one fibroid, and mine was 3 to 4 centimetres big, which isn't actually that big on the scale of fibroids, trust me. So these are really common, really common. There's a lot of women who have fibroids, whether they know it or not. And basically it's a non-cancerous muscular tumours that grow in or on the walls of the uterus. So it affects up to, it says here, 80% of women by the age of 50. They vary in size. So I said mine was 3 to 4 centimetres. But when I went for my hysterectomy, there was a woman there who was waiting to get a hysterectomy with me, and hers was 15 centimetres. And the woman that I was on the ward with, in a room with, she had had a hysterectomy and hers was 14 centimetres. So 3 to 4 centimetres is basically nothing. Yes, so basically going to be seedlings to large masses and are often symptomatic, but can cause asymptomatic. They're often asymptomatic, but can cause heavy menstrual bleeding, pelvic pain, and frequent urination. So I mentioned pelvic pain and menstrual bleeding about polyps. So basically fibroids and polyps have exactly the same thing. But obviously there's frequent urination. Now I did have frequent urination, but I have a sneaky suspicion that that was actually to do with how big my uterus was, because it was blocking my bladder. So I couldn't fit as much in my bladder before I needed the toilet. That's something I've always had for as long as I can remember. So whether I've always had the fibroid or whatever, I don't know. There's so many things that were going on or possibly going on inside that it's difficult to know what caused what. So because I didn't know any of them existed until this year, and we went through the whole process of investigation and all that kind of thing. So I don't know if that was a symptom of that or it was a symptom of one of the other things that I had going on inside at the time. But apparently it's frequent urination. I really do like the fact that now that everything's been taken out, I can go to the toilet. I've halved the times that I go to the toilet now. That's how much that whatever was going on was restricting my bladder. Anyway, apparently the exact cause of fibroids is unknown, but they are linked to estrogen and progesterone. So they tend to grow during reproductive years and then shrink after menopause. So obviously I'm only getting perimenopause symptoms now since I've had the hysterectomy. I'm 40, so I haven't had any symptoms before the hysterectomy. Again, I don't know if this was what was causing all my problems or not, since most women have them, 80%, as I said, had them by the age of 50. That is saying that that's perimenopause age, isn't it? From like on average 40 to 50 or whatever before you go through the actual menopause. So I've got some more symptoms on here. It says 1 in 3 women have symptoms. And I said about the heavy prolonged bleeding, the periods. It also says lower back, leg pain, constipation and pain during sex. I had lower back pain, but a lot of my pain was in my pelvis. It was my lower back. Basically, it's where I always had period pains. But they were like, it was like a pressure as such, not period pains. And it went along the bottom of my back, and then it was in like my pelvis and stuff as well. Again, whether that was to do with this or one of the many other things that was wrong, I don't know. But basically, there's various treatments you can have. So you can have hormone therapy, which I think is the most common one, and a lot of women I've spoken to, that's what they've had. For me, that did not work. It did not stop the bleeding. Again, whether that was the fibroid or not that was causing all that, or it was a combination of everything, I'm not sure. That didn't work for me. We tried lots of different hormone treatments, and some of them would work for a bit and then they just would stop. I think in February, a set of hormone treatment worked for 2 weeks, and then it started bleeding again and it just wasn't working. And then there's also fibroid removal. So apparently this is like shaving off the fibroid. So the problem with that is it can grow back again. But obviously I've mentioned this before, if you are wanting to have children, for instance, you might want to shave the fibroid off and try going for there, because it could improve your fertility and your chances of getting pregnant. And then the option that I went for was a hysterectomy. So obviously that is taking the uterus out. I had my fallopian tubes taken out and also my cervix. So no more smear tests, which is like the best thing about the cervix not being there. Obviously, this is a major operation and it's a major thing because you now cannot have children. So if you, if you're quite young, you might not want children right now, but then in the future you do want them. So the shaving option is obviously an option, or the hormone treatment are two things that obviously would appeal more to, I guess, younger people and people who may, want to start a family. I mean, you can start a family at 40. There's plenty of people who get pregnant at 40 and older. So, but yeah, we were past all that. That wasn't going to happen for us. So I was okay with having the hysterectomy. So there are various risk factors that may mean that you're more likely to get fibroids. So one of them is a family history. I'm not aware of anybody, any female, having fibroids in my family. My sister and my mum has never had problems like this. My gran did have a hysterectomy, but my mum's unaware of what the reason behind that was. So she maybe did have fibroids, but she did successfully have 3 children. And there was a 4th pregnancy as well that she took to full term. So it obviously wasn't impacting at that stage her fertility and things. So whether she did have fibroid or not, I don't know. But yeah, anyway. Another one is your age. So if you're between 30 and 50, you're more likely to have fibroids, which obviously I'm banging in the middle of that. And then apparently your race as well. So if you are black, you're more likely to get fibroids. I'm not sure why that is, but apparently that's true. And also obesity and your diet. So at the moment, I'm definitely putting quite a bit of weight, but that's because I haven't been able to do anything much this year for being ill. And I'm not overly thrilled about my face right now. But anyway, I've never been obese though. So that's obviously not a factor for me. So basically, other than the age, I don't actually know what risk factors in those that mean that I would be more likely to get fibroids. I think, to be honest, my whole insides are just running on a different machine than all the other women in my family, basically. But anyway, that is it for this video. I hope you find it interesting. As I've said before in the last information video, I want to try and raise awareness of some of these issues. These are common issues for women, and you might not realise that some of the things that are happening in your body have other causes and may actually have treatment and a resolution, basically, and you don't have to suffer in silence like most of us do most of our lives. And yeah, anyway, so that's it for this video, and I have one more video coming up which will be very soon, and there's another information video, and that one's going to be on no it isn't that one's going to be on endometriosis and adenomyosis, which, if you're like me, you haven't heard of the second one, so yeah, tune in for that one. Thank you for watching. Bye.